320 onwards, as Maciej will do the turboprop section later, so I don't really want to cross that. I think that's the first step. Secondly, I will then dive a little bit into the benchmark of the certain segments like the 321s, the 757, and the 738, and we'll compare a little bit the attractiveness and also a little bit elaborate items that are important to be considered for freighter conversions. And that's basically, I think, where this will what's achievable in this short time. So let me start with an overview of what is available now. The hottest item, in my opinion, is that IAI, also known as BEDEC in Israel, have announced and launched the customer for the 777-300 ERF freighter. I think that is a really attractive option, given that the converted freighter will offer almost 6 more pallets to the market on the main deck and 8 more lower deck compartments on the lower deck. Also, the 777-300 ER is basically, according to BEDEC, able to accommodate a payload of almost 100 tons. I think it's an option. We will see some 777s, 300s, vintages 2000 coming quite significantly to the market. So feedstock is also pretty much assured. I know Boeing has been and is working on a similar option for the 200 and the 300 extended range conversion. But until this date, I don't believe that Boeing has made a firm announcement that they would process on this, but they're evaluating it. Secondly, on the wide bodies, still not to forget that IAI is still able to perform the 747-400 conversions. They have kits available. They're basically also able to do it. In the last years, this aircraft has lost attractiveness. People were more inclined to at least the majority of the operators who basically consider that aircraft as more or less like an obsolete aircraft, and we're heading more to the 777s or the 747-8. But nevertheless, the option is there. I don't really know if it will bounce back. If you ask IAI, they're very keen on developing this, but I think it may be a challenge. Coming down to the 767-300s, obviously market leaders too, Boeing and IAI. IAI converts, they call it basically BDSF, and Boeing calls it BCF. That's why I'm neutral on my presentation with just giving you the F version. And basically the facilities, Boeing has some facilities also in Taiwan. Boeing has some facilities in China to work on the to convert the 767s. IAI has facilities in Tel Aviv and in Mexico that are mainly occupied with this. Both, as you can imagine, are pretty much taken these days. On the 757s, we still have the 200. It's still being an active conversion by ST Aerospace in Singapore, as well as Precision. Both are basically still clearing up the backlog of the 757s. I guess we all know a little bit what is triggering that difficulty here is basically, at least pre-COVID times, the feedstock of the engines and thereby also the feedstock of the aircraft as such. That has been basically always been a bit of a challenge. Now we also see in the market that a lot of aircrafts are basically now put in to the market, and it could very well be that the demands will grow. There are still a large number, in my opinion. There are 74 suitable aircraft out there in the market that would still be could still be considered as candidates for the 757s, but it's limited to those two design houses. Very, very active segment is the 737-700 and 800. Market leader clearly is Boeing, that have until now converted some 35 freighters and is basically in full swing to develop this. We all know that now the availability after COVID of the 800 is clearing up, and that has not been really the case before the crisis. So basically, as we'll all see a little bit of a swing in this. AI is also well on its way with conversion facilities in Canada and Miami, and also in Jinan in China. PEMCO is very much limited to the 700s. They have not designed a STC for the 800s. They're in process, they claim, but it's taking time for them. But what they've did on the 700, I think is pretty innovative. They build a flex combi, they call it, which is a multitask conversion and full freighter conversion of the 700. Same goes for IAI. IAI have been the launch conversion with Alaska Airlines aircraft 700s in 2017. And basically, they now also obtained the STC and got a pretty impressive launch customer with DHL. So much for the Boeing side. On the conversion products on the A330s or on the Airbus products, you will see the A330s is basically solely converted by EFW in cooperation with ST Aerospace in Singapore. Most aircrafts are being converted in Dresden and in Singapore so far. Options are that they would expand into conversion sites in Guangzhou and eventually in the US as well. Particular aircrafts, I see Patrick Leopold is also on the call. So the 321 prototype is being developed with EFW and Precision at this time. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first aircraft would EFW obtained its STC, and the delivery of the aircraft is expected, according to my information, at least somewhere around July, August, to Qantas, who would be the launch operator for this aircraft type. 321 Precision, which is a JV between ATSG and Precision Aircraft Services, are basically following up. There's been a little bit of a rat race there. And we see that Precision claims, or at least expects, the STC to be available in Q3, Q4 2020. And according to my information, they also have, obviously it's Valère who has been the launch customer also for Precision. And unconfirmed, but it looks like the first aircraft will be operated by, the launch operator would be SmartLynx of Lithuania. Other parties that have claimed and announced that they would that they are working on the 321s is Sandreco in China, and C3 or C-Cube Aero also from San Diego. So far they've been keeping their development relatively low profile. They have at least not come back publicly with any firm announcements. So it's a little bit pending on whether or not they will achieve, first of all, to obtain the STC, secondly, at what date. Last aircraft that I would like to address here would be the 320-200. It was originally launched by EFW AFC, Airbus Freighter Conversions, in 2010. It was then abandoned in 2011. And been taken up now in the new program as basically a complementary product to the 321. As far as I understand, there's no start of the program yet. There's no prototype being in development. Nevertheless, EFW has signed a letter of intent with the Chinese holding that has committed for 10 aircrafts. We'll address that a bit later. Same here is that C3 or C-Cube is basically working on a prototype of the 320 conversion. Also here, a little bit low profile to publications. We understand that the aircraft is being worked upon right now, and the expected STC would be late this year or the beginning of next year. Same goes for Sandreco, where we basically also don't really, at least publicly, know their status. They claim to be working on the STC, but I personally have not really followed up on their status. So let's narrow this down a little bit to see what does the different aircraft types benchmark it would obviously the 767s and the 777s and the 747s are pretty much known. The ones where we can narrow this down a little bit would be to benchmark the 757s, the 321s, and the 737 against each other. And I think this chart shows a little bit the categories. Obviously, it's very much the 321, which is a new product to the market, is basically often, and in my opinion, a bit too much compared to the 737-800. It's clearly a successor for the 757 and not so much a successor of or a competitor to the 737. And you will see in the next slides that it's basically very much dependent on where your market lies, where each of these aircraft come best to their utilization. Here a slide on what we believe and what we investigated a bit. How we see the aircraft values after conversion and yet before the definition of new values after the COVID crisis, which so far are not really overseeable. And all of us as well, we've joined a couple of WebEx conferences where all sorts of entities are doing their best to evaluate values now, but I think we haven't seen the bottom of this, and we believe there will be probably more capacity coming to the market, putting pressure on the prices, which will then again impact on the on-ramp values after conversion. Here another slide on the benchmark with regards to fuel burn. Obviously, the elder vintages of 757 are pretty thirsty aircraft. This is where the 321 stands out, in my opinion. And with the lesser capacity, the 737-800 is of course more fuel efficient. In terms of maintenance costs per hours, we also see that the 321 sticks out with a good capacity and still reasonable maintenance cost per block hour. And the similar goes for the annual direct operating costs. We'll see a little bit what we did is here a sort of a benchmark of where the aircraft lies. And the question is, of course, that the 737 achieves the lowest trip costs, but it also carries basically less cargo. So it's basically a question of where do you use that aircraft and in which segment this is being best explored. I think it's clearly shows that the 321 comes very close to a very eligible successor of the 757. And that the 737-800 should not really be used as a benchmark against this aircraft because we're basically entering into a different capacity. Here is a picture of the difference. There is the precision and EFW. So you will see clearly what are the main difference between the two conversion designs. And I'd like to draw your attention to two main topics, which is the cockpit and the 14th pallets on each of the two aircrafts. You will see that the rigid wall on the EFW aircraft has been moved forward, basically removing quite some space in the cockpit. It also requires a separate entry door for the crews. You'll see an impressive picture on that. But this will accommodate that they can load 14 full-size AAA containers, a uniform load combination with the usual lower deck either in bulk or in containerized version. Precision has a different design. They kept the original cockpit intact, and the compromise for being able to do that is that the 14th position is not a full position. It will either be a netted or two LD3 containers could be fitted on position 14. Other than that, basically, there is no difference between those two engine variants. For the moment, are still able to accommodate conversions. Both parties could accommodate conversions for the CFM powered aircraft as well as for the V powered aircraft. So this basically does not really show any differences. I think the first aircraft in ST Aerospace is a V powered aircraft, and the first aircraft in Precision's facility is a CFM powered aircraft, but that's basically insignificant. I think both conversion designs would allow both engine types to be applied. Here's the picture that I just to give you an impression. The additional cargo door the additional the cockpit door. Precision has made up a mock-up according to them, the constraints and the compromises on the cabin layout versus the additional advantages in the cockpit. You will also know that some operators will have priority given to positioning crews and to certain comfort in the cockpit, and others may simply compromise and say, look, we want 14 full-size pallets or containers because this is what our network requires, and thereby they're happy to compromise on the cockpit. So in my opinion, I do not want to basically make a judgment on what would be preference, what would be my preferential position. It's basically up to the operator to decide what they would prefer. Here's a nice picture on how the aircraft will look like. So you've got 14 full-fledged positions on the EFW aircraft. To your left on the screen, and on the two aircraft so to the right are basically the precision layout with either two LD3s in the 14th position or a netted pallet. So to summarize, basically a little of a repeat what I did before is the 757, ST Aerospace and Precisions are basically still active. We see issues that the feedstock may be run out. Now we are in a different scenario. Now I think we have a sort of a revival of the 757s as more aircrafts and possibly more engines will come to the market, and this could take a new upswing. But basically, the developments were made that this aircraft wasn't gonna last very long as a feedstock provider, and would basically be replaced by the 321. That would be it on the 737-700. In my opinion, pre-COVID times, it indicated actually to be quite successful as feedstock prices on the 800 were basically going through the roof, and it would have been more attractive to basically feed your network with 700s and eventually use one or two aircrafts more in the network at a lower overall cost. That has been considered by some of the bigger integrators. I think now the recent developments changed that fundamentally. So basically we're back on what I call the blockbuster, which is the 737-800, which was launched in 2018 by West Atlantic, and Boeing has succeeded very successful to achieve 35 aircraft. Alan, you can confirm this later. Maybe I'm a little bit wrong here, but this is at least my assessment. Aeronautical engineering and IAI are also have developed STCs, have developed a market for that. I believe we will see those three aircraft conversions doing equally well. Maybe a slight advantage for the OEM powered or OEM supported version, but in general, I think these three parties will dominate that market, just like it did on the classics. We saw on the classic, we saw quite a split between PEMCO and AEI, and I believe we will see the same on the 800. 321, much has been said. A little bit of a repeat now that the STC has been delivered in March 2020 to EFW, and the first aircraft is expected to be delivered to the operator now in July. It's still a little bit early to assess whether these aircraft will really see a success. You know, it's not been in operation. There's no track record. There's no proven success in operations. There's always a bit of a question. Next issues that could come up is basically availabilities of conversion sites and eventually bottlenecks in kits and bottlenecks in supply chain. May become an issue, and basically I think this aircraft will come more massively to the market as from 2022 onwards. I think it will still drag a little bit until we will see a larger number of these aircraft being flown. Last aircraft is the 320-200. As I mentioned, it was originally started in 2010, then basically been relaunched by EFW again, and I'm not so sure whether or not this aircraft will succeed. The latest situation also and the success of the 800s in terms of proven records, in terms of uniform capacity in many airline fleets. I think that the 320 will see a role as a complementary aircraft to those operators that are already operating the 321 in cargo or in their fleet. And that's a little bit where I would see that. Maybe over the years that may change. But as we see the current situation, and also with regards to the availability of the aircraft, I would guess that the 800 will dominate that segment as well, and basically put the 320 in a less attractive position. That would be it in my side. I hope I'm still within the time frame. The agenda said that I would elaborate on the financing options. Here are my contact details. I'm very happy to discuss with those who have an interest in any of these aircraft. I may advise them. I may also basically introduce them to the details of this. That will be it for me,
that was excellent. Really good overview. We have some questions which I'll hold off till the end. I'd like to get Alan Gagan on board now. If you've stopped share there. Alan, you ready to go?
Yes, Alan, I am just gonna try share my screen first.
All right, go ahead. I'd like to welcome Alan Gagan from Boeing on board. It's great to have one of the OEMs on here that are doing P2F conversions, and over to Alan now if he's ready to go. I think if you have the full screen there now, so I think all good.
Okay, thank you, Alan, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you're tuning in from. I'm very happy to present today on Boeing freighter conversions. My name is Alan Gagan. I'm the Regional Director for Global Leasing with Boeing. I'm based in our Dublin office, our new Leasing Support and Services Centre, which is based in Grand Canal. I'm going to present today just on a brief presentation on our freighter conversion programs. First of all, just to a current market outlook. Obviously, COVID-19 has had a huge impact to our industry, with significant loss in passenger traffic and revenue, which has also impacted a major reduction in cargo capacity. We can see that medical supplies, pharmaceuticals and e-commerce are currently the main drivers for cargo demand at the moment. However, the market will recover. We expect passenger traffic to improve the second half of this year, with air cargo improving sometime in Q4 this year. With air cargo demand, we expect it to rebound in 2021 with the resurgence of world trade and the increase in industrial production worldwide. However, our long-term fundamentals of the market remain. Aviation and air cargo are crucial to the world economy, and the world air cargo market is very resilient. So, our forecasts show that the cargo market will need an additional 2,820 freighters over the next 20 years to meet market demand. And you can see that in this slide. We've detailed out what type of freighters and how many of each type we expect will be in demand over the next 20 years. So in 2018, there was 1,970 freighters in the world market, and we expect by 2038 that will increase to 3,400. And that's broken up into four areas. The large production freighters, such as the 777 and the 747 freighter, we expect we need an additional 540 of those. Wide body conversions, which the Boeing 767 BCF falls into that category, along with the A330, etc. We expect we need another 560 of those in the next 20 years. And then the medium body production aircraft, such as the 767 production, another 500 of those. But by far the biggest area we see is the standard body conversions, which is the 737 conversions and the A320, A321, etc. We expect 1,220 additional freighters required for the world market over the next 20 years in that area. Just want to emphasize Boeing's family of freighters. So we have a complete family of freighters made up of our production freighters, which is the 747, the 777, and the 767. And they're complemented with our freighter conversion programs, which is the 767 BCF and the 737 BCF. So I'm just going to go into a brief detail on both the 737 and the 767 BCF. So to start off with some information on the program for the 737. So far, we've had 130 orders and commitments from 10 customers on the 737 BCF. Peter, you were being very kind to us, saying 35. In fact, as of yesterday, we have 30 firmed in our 30 737 BCFs delivered as of the 27th of May. We have 3 locations where we carry out our conversions. We have a line in Jinan in Steiko, Boeing Shanghai, which is BSAS, and in Guangzhou at Gamaco are the 3 locations. And out of those 3 locations, we have a total of currently 6 lines. So I think we have 3 in Steiko, 2 in BSAS, and 1 in Gamaco. Because of the robust demand for the BCF, we're currently also evaluating additional conversion capacity as well. We've completed 5 certifications for the 737 BCF from FAA, EASA, CAAC, FATA, and DGCA. And as I mentioned, the strong customer demand for the 737 continues. Our program slots are pretty much sold out until 2022 at the moment. That's one of the reasons why we're evaluating additional capacity. Some detail, and I don't show the same information Peter showed, but just the 737 BCF has 12 positions on the main cargo deck. 11 of them are the 88 by 128 size pallet capacity. That's the AAA pallet capacity, and then the position 12 is a smaller LD3 half pallet size. For operating costs, if we take the 737-300 freighter as a baseline, the 737 BCF can offer 19% lower operating costs per metric payload than the 737-300. And some advantages that the 737-800 has over our competition is that obviously the market prefers the OEM delivered solution. So far, we've had 30 deliveries of that, and I believe our competitors so far have had 3. But with the BCF, there's no annual technical support access fee required from Boeing. Where if a freighter is converted with a competitor, there's a $67,000 annual technical support fee required for that. Our main cargo door is 141 inches wide, which is 4 inches wider than our competitor's door. And it's also positioned slightly further away from the engines, which helps prevent potential damage when loading. Our capacity is 10,000 pounds, which is 2,000 pounds higher than our competitor's capacity. And with the Boeing solution, it's possible to get the integrated the manuals integrated with the BCF, and that's not possible if it's converted with a competitor. And the BCF also accommodates the Telair lower hold cargo containers, which is the Telair is like the moving carpet loading system in the lower cargo. And with the BCF also, there's no stanchions required in the lower hold to hold up the main deck or the main deck floor, which increases the capacity of the lower hold. So talk just briefly about the 767 converted freighter now. So far, we've had 51 orders and commitments for the 767 BCF and 40 redeliveries completed. We have 9 customers for it, and a mix of again, same as the 737, a mix of lessors and airlines. The main deck capacity is double that of the 737 BCF with 24 88 by 128 size pallet positions. And then in the lower hold, you can hold an additional 4 AAA pallets plus 14 smaller LD2 pallets in the lower hold. And taking the A330-200 passenger to freighter conversion as the baseline, the 767 BCF can offer a 12% lower relative trip cost. And the final slide here is just talk a little bit about the programs for the 737 and the 767. So for both programs, once contracts have been accepted, we will tie in and confirm the delivery or the induction and redelivery dates. And then a minimum of 6 months before induction for each program, we require the MSNs to be confirmed for the aircraft. The reason for this is that we need a minimum of 6 months to carry out the pre-engineering work before the modification happens. That includes such things as records reviews, configuration selection, repair analysis, service bulletin development, and building of the kits. Now, the modification for the 737 takes 90 days. And during that modification, service bulletins can be installed by the customer, and also aircraft maintenance can be performed during that modification as well. The 767, however, is a little bit longer. It takes 105 days for the modification. And again, maintenance can be performed during the modification for that. With a 10-minute time limit, it was difficult to give all the information on the BCS. However, if anybody is interested in a full presentation or full details about these BCS, please reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to set up meetings with anyone to talk through it. Well, thank you very much, Alan. I'll hand it back to you, and I guess we're doing Q&A at the end. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. That's great, Alan. Thank you very much. A very good summary. Sorry for the time limitation, but I think it's just good to get the basic info. And as you said, if anybody wants to follow up, you'll get the contact details later. So thanks for that. Again, we'll hold off the questions until the end. I'd like to introduce Maciek, if you're still there. Interesting to get an overview and an update on the regional jet conversion options now. So Maciek is from Contact Air Technik. Maciek, now pardon me if I get the pronunciation wrong, it's Maciek Jaroszuk. So Maciek, if you're ready to go and share the screens, it'd be great.
Hey, hello. Yes, you're very good. Your polish is improving by the minute. Hello, gentlemen. Yes, I run an MRO in Germany in Contact Air Technik, specializing in conversions and aircraft in transition. And I'd like to tell you a little bit more about perhaps a different view on the topic of the P2Fs in the turboprop market, in the regional aircraft market.
So you're ready to share the screen here, yeah?
Let me share the screen first.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you just do, yeah,
good?
Perfect. Yes, perfect. Go ahead.
Great. All right. So just a few words of introduction. Since I'd like to attract your attention to perhaps a different aspect of the conversion, a little bit from the perspective of the implementation challenge, from the MRO perspective, on the basis of the Contact Air. Contact Air has been a regional MRO focused on the regional aircraft with lots of history. Originally part of a Lufthansa group, Lufthansa Regional, and through the process of let's say market changes, it became a standalone a third-party MRO some time ago, not long from now, about in 2013, searching for its own place on the market. Since one of the problems of the let's say technical side of the aviation is the increasing cost of labor, and let's say inability of competing with the cost of labor as such with let's say some other parts of the world, you know, where the MROs have become more proficient and can offer a much better let's say rate, man-hour rate. Hence let's say the need for differentiation, and perhaps finding establishing a unique selling point. This MRO has through the process of change has put on let's say developing support, comprehensive support for aircraft in transition, working basically with aircraft owners as much as airlines or operators. And in this context, it has focused on its, let's say, specialty, on its types, which is basically ATRs, Fokkers, and Dash 8 Q400s. In this particular regional, or let's say regional segment, there are a number of challenges that are presently even more, let's say, visible. One is that within, let's say, that area of specialty, there is, it's very much a lean and mean market, which means the airlines, the aircraft by themselves, by definition, require a very cost-efficient structure for the support. But also, within that program, there is, let's say, within that specialty, there is a special segment of freighter conversions, which I will be talking to you about. However, in the context first of how we attract, let's say, the aircraft by offering, let's say, a complete vision on how to manage the aircraft in transition, taking into consideration, let's say, maintenance aspects of prerequisites to the conversion, and also thinking of, let's think beyond the implementation of the mod itself, how to, let's say, ensure low within, let's say, trying to be different as an MRO. We have gone further into not only providing a comprehensive support on, let's say, all aspects of maintenance, conversion, and engineering, but also the concept of, let's say, support, commercial support for remarketing of the aircraft post-conversion. As for the, let's say, conversion to options for that, let's say, exist, that I find practical on the market. Within the segment of ATRs, there are really two programs currently available besides the OEM, and that is the program offered by ACA, Air Conseil. This is they offer basically a light so-called light cargo conversion option, offering mostly, and this is typical for the turboprop market due to the size of the aircraft. Most of the conversion programs are destined for bulk loading, parcel freighters rather than containerized freighters. Although, as you can see on this picture, on this presentation, there is one program for ATRs, originally designed by Alenia, part of OEM, then took over by IPR from Switzerland, and commercialized as a third-party STC for the large freight cargo and structural modification, structural tube and large cargo door modification. In principle, since I've also shared with Peter, we've got a cargo background. From the airline perspective, I must say that let's say there is a limited applicability of the large freight door options for this size of aircraft. The cost of it is immense. The time and also time needed and also cost required for complexity of transforming the aircraft, the ATR, into a large freight door option is extensive. To give you a comparison, the average light conversion, as I call it, by ACA takes approximately 2 to 3 months in full, and is with the cost of around 550,000 euros as a complete cost of conversion. The IPR version of it with the large fry door, so the complete cost is around 2.2 million euro, and it takes approximately, I mean, they think it takes 6 months. In practice, in practical terms, it takes almost a year to convert this aircraft. And this is also due to the fact that this specific type of conversion has not really been designed to operate, to be implemented by third-party MROs. It is an important aspect when looking at conversions themselves, that some of them are organized, let's say, more professionally than others in terms of sequencing work and the designing the conversion to be understood by let's say, in third-party MRO terms, allowing efficiency. That all turns out, it basically translates into time and cost of such a conversion. So IPR in general, although offering, let's say, best, the most versatile conversion to date for the ATRs, is also the most complex and the most expensive type of conversion. Ultimately, let's say, putting in question the viability of the whole program. So obviously, it's also a limited applicability on the market. For such a small aircraft, I'm sure you all know that the containerized options mean a loss of volume, and for small aircraft, it means a substantial loss of volume. To give you a comparison, a large fry door structural tube version, so without a large door, large fry door versus a structural tube. So containerized freight versus bulk loaded freight is a loss. There is a difference between approximately 80 cubic meters and 50 cubic meters. So 50 within the containers and 80 in bulk loading. That's a massive difference, obviously. Hence, let's say, the usability of that version is limited. Although there is also let's say, an option that has been selected by FedEx for the replacement of their fleet. This is an OEM conversion. It's based on the same STC, in fact, IPR STC, with certain modifications to it, which will be done by ATR online, on the production line. It is yet to be seen whether that program finds, let's say, an attractive ground in the, let's say, beyond the operators such as FedEx. They have taken opportunity, and Peter mentioned that, I think, as well previously, that the attractiveness of the P2F programs very much depend on the cost of feedstock and availability of it. And as far as this specific program as well, the FedEx has taken opportunity in situation of the ATR, who has basically not been selling aircraft for quite some time, and because of that, they also they took advantage of reducing the cost of a feedstock before conversion to an unprecedented level, that made the whole program worthwhile. So there is also one more conversion I wanted to bring to your attention that is emerging a bit from the shadows right now, and that is conversion STC by Cascade for Dash 8 Q400s. It happened that this conversion in particular has been, it's also classified as a so-called light conversion. So it's a netted conversion with the netted cargo restraint system and the bulk loaded aircraft without modification of the door. The cost of it oscillates approximately in the area of the ACA conversion, ACA solution for ATRs. However, today, this conversion was developed a long time ago, but in fact, first aircraft were converted post SAS, let's say, incidents with folding gears, when the whole fleet was phased out from SAS, and certain aircraft became available prematurely on the let's say, as candidates for conversion. I had the pleasure to, I had an opportunity to test that aircraft, the first converted aircraft, in Q400 aircraft, STC by Cascade, by the way, Cascade Aerospace in Canada. The aircraft itself has proven to meet the minimum requirements. Obviously, it has got certain advantages towards ATR as far as performance characteristics. But as a freighter, at that time, it was simply too expensive, and mostly too expensive for what it was. Also, very much in connection to the feedstock. Now, post-COVID situation has created a number of opportunities on that market as well. And as we see today, on the European market alone, I see at least 50 aircraft that have been are in the process of repossession, and they will be available to potential new buyers. And as you can imagine, there are not too many buyers of aircraft. So let's say a freighter option becomes an attractive alternative solution also for this aircraft. There's since the introduction to the program, six aircraft, 6 Q400s and 60 ATRs have been converted to date. So let's say that conversion by Cascade is yet to be, let's say, seen whether it is yet to prove its viability on the market. Originally, just to give you a comparison, an ATR light conversion offers the 80 cubic meters, as I mentioned, and approximately 7.5 ton payload. By own declarations of Cascade, now de Havilland, previously Boeing, Bombardier, the Q400 offers only 1 ton more and approximately 3 cubic meter more of payload, which doesn't seem to be right, by the way, because the aircraft is substantially larger. But so there is a number of, let's say, improvements to be made. I believe that the Havilland, together with Cascade, is right now working on this topic. So they've been very cautious about it. Nevertheless, the program is there, and it seems to be an attractive solution for those that wish to do something with Q400s. Otherwise, basically, other than parking them and hoping for the best for the future. And maybe a little bit yet to summarize something that you might find interesting. Should you be considering P2Fs in general from the MRO perspective and overall cost of such an adventure? That the aircraft in transition in general from cargo implementation, from a cargo mod implementation side, require let's say a focus on good workmanship, good metal sheet workers, good engineering support, consideration of items such as additional corrosion protection programs that especially for P2Fs are quite relevant, because they may significantly extend the life or save the cost of the airframe later on. And the overall management, material management of the program, which also requires from the MRO, let's say, a certain experience, because the idea is to let's say to investigate in time for the, let's say, completeness of the kit, quality of that kit before it is installed. So all of this makes a difference, impacts the overall cost of the program. And maybe the last element of it, also quite unknown, usually not very much in contracts, in conversion contracts, which is so-called deviations, engineering deviations. So deviations from the original modification documentation. Let's say efficient MROs also think of how to reduce the deviations by working, let's say, in close cooperation between the engineering project management teams and the metal sheet workers that are actually hands-on implementing the instructions. So summarizing, the turboprop market is very much, it has got its own dynamics, and I must say that right now the freighters are very much also in demand, although comparing to the mid-size aircraft market, it's obviously a different scale. And Q400s will probably become an attractive solution to the add-on to the existing practical solutions, which is the light cargo conversions for the aircraft, the bulk loading and the netting. That is basically a solution that seems to be, let's say, definite for this size of an aircraft. So I'd like to stop here. This is supposed to be a concise, so apologies in advance if it's been too concise. But if there are any questions, I'm also happy to answer them later with my contact details as well.
Patrick, thank you very much for that. It was very interesting to see that aspect of the market too, and that there are options out there in Europe. So just quickly going through a couple of the questions that came in on the chat. One from Castle Lake there. Maybe for Peter, are there clear operator preferences for conversions completed by particular conversion shops? Have you any feedback on that, or
can you just repeat it again, Alan?
Are there clear operator preferences for conversions? In other words, do operators prefer one shop over the other? Maybe they favor the OEM as independents, or?
I think there is a certain preference, obviously, and that preference has to do with once you make your selection on your fleet, you would like to stick with that commonality in terms of aircraft. Let's say, not to go ahead now, but let's just compare the classic PEMCO AEI conversion. We've seen operators basically favoring one conversion design to another, and once they've made that choice, they basically try to stick within that frame. And eventually also geographically, if you spread your conversion sites, it's more logistic problem for you to really be engaged with all parties. I think that decision is normally made, and once an operator sticks to that decision, I would reckon that he wants to hang on with it, unless there is like a pressure on the market that you need to deliver and you're ready to mix those conversions.
Yeah, there's a question here from Zephyrus, Dave Gleason. Do you reckon there's going to be a long lead time in securing slots at any of these facilities, or how is that going to affect?
Yeah, I think right now we see that the slots securitization, basically to secure yourself with slots, it's getting tight. You know, I think there's a large number of it is booked. Alan can speak for maybe for Boeing. But my latest contacts with EFW, Precision, and those for the 321s, for example, it's pretty much access to slots will be pretty far ahead from now. I guess new slots 2022. So that's what yes, the answer is in short is yes. I think there will be a long.
I suppose there is a risk out there that may be a surplus of cargo aircraft after COVID with the demand. So that remains to be seen. We had a question there from Airbridge Cargo, which is specific to 320, 321 passenger freighter conversions. Maybe I'd ask Sergey to contact Peter directly on those. They're related to expected line load and area load and main decks, really specific technical issues. Maybe we can address them outside of the call just for conciseness. Sergey, sorry for that, but we'll get back to you there. And last question then would be: is there any 737-800s excluded from the BCF program, Alan? Question came in there.
There is. I think some of the earlier variants of the 737 are not suitable. I can't recall the exact line number, but who asked the question? Owen. So Owen, yeah, I'll reach out to you directly. There are certain earlier variants that are not suitable, and up until recently, it was not possible to do a conversion on a 737 that had the split scimitar wings. But we have a solution to that now, so that's not a blocker anymore. But I'll reach out to you directly with the exact line numbers that are excluded. Good
stuff. All right. Going to sorry, there's one question from Miles. I better not forget Miles. Does P2F conversion involve upgrading the MTOW and thrust? These are normally expensive OEM mods. If upgrades are involved, are these costs included in the conversion cost? Maybe for Alan again.
Yeah, certainly with the Boeing conversion, no. Any performance upgrades to the aircraft are not covered in the pricing for the modification. They would be additional.
I think Miles. You can reach out to Miles on that. Just I know we're over the hour mark. Peter, you have a comment?
Yes, I would like to confirm this is also applicable for the 321s. That weight upgrades and weight variant changes are basically not included in the conversion cost.
Good stuff. I just realised we're just over the hour, but just to keep you for 2 more minutes, Alex, my colleague down in Cork is going to give you 1 or 2 slides on APTN membership updates, just to show you where we're at. And then once that's done, we can let you all go. So Alex, are you ready to go?
Yeah, perfect, Dan. Let me just share my screen here.
So Alex is lined up to do the UCD Masters in Aviation Finance in September. So he's helping me out over next couple of months while he's getting up to speed on that. So go ahead, Alex.
Thanks again, Peter, Alan, and Magic for those presentations. They were fantastic. I'm just going to give you a quick overview on where we're at the APTN network at the moment. Just giving you an update on the new LinkedIn page we have, the WhatsApp regional groups, the demographic of the membership, and our growth plans and targets. So if you haven't had a look at it already, I would recommend that you go over to our corporate page on LinkedIn, the APTN network. It just gives day-to-day updates. It's going to be posting regularly in regards to these Zoom calls that are going to be up on YouTube, the podcasts, some of Alan's articles, and any other news about updates on membership. So we've recently introduced the WhatsApp regional groups, which gives more of a quick form of communication between members from a more regional basis. So as you can see, we've 10 different groups according to your region. They're being added every day. Feel free to email me. I know I sent out an email last week about them. I'll probably send out another next week in regards to invites to join the WhatsApp regional groups. These are more allow for conversation between the members and just help, another way to help build up the network. For any of you who were here last week, you would have seen this slide in regards to the demographic. We're really trying to hone in on having as much of a diverse network as possible, just to make the connections and make it worthwhile joining the network. So we've such a wide reach for anyone who's needs work or plans across any expertise, as you can see in the bottom right. So like I explained last week, our target is to have APTN members in every single country. Now, finally, like I mentioned last week, we have a large number, just over 1,100 in the APTN hub. And we currently have 249 platform members on the website, which has grown significantly in the last 2 weeks. And our goal is to get to 1,000 APTN members by the end of 2020. as I've mentioned before, a lot of people have signed up to Basic, which does not offer half as much of the opportunities on the platform as ATP does. We currently are offering ATP for free for the rest of 2020 due to COVID-19, and we know there's lots of struggles, and having a great communication and having great connections in the aircraft technical network, we know is so important. So we're offering people free ATP membership for the rest of 2020. So we'd recommend that you sign in as an ATP member rather than as a basic member. And if you have any questions, queries in regards to any of these calls, the membership itself, or if you want to be added to WhatsApp groups or anything, my contact details are up here. So I will stop sharing that screen there. I don't know.
Good stuff. Thanks, Alex, for that. So guys, that's it for today. Just to let you know, next week I'm planning to do a Zoom call on, and actually Maciek mentioned it briefly there, Part 21 engineering, design organization approval. We'll have a couple of manufacturers hopefully and Part 21 experts on board to give you a talk about that. Again, hopefully try and keep it as short as possible, get you in and out of the Zoom call in time for lunch. And on that note, I'll sign off, and thanks again for joining. I hope you found it interesting, and we'll continue keeping you updated and interested on aircraft technical issues. All right. See you guys.
Very interesting, Alan. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Hey, Peter.
Bye.